1 month after the Supreme Court struck down affirmative action in colleges across the country, advocacy groups are putting a spotlight on legacy admissions, claiming that they violate civil rights laws. Groups like the Greater Boston Latino Network are taking action, filing a 31-page complaint against Harvard University this week, alleging that legacy admissions, quote, systematically disadvantage students of color, including Black, Latinx, and Asian Americans. A spokesperson from the Education Department confirmed to NBC News on Tuesday that Harvard's admissions process is currently being investigated. Meanwhile, some prestigious colleges and universities have already decided to end legacy admissions. Among them, Amherst, Johns Hopkins, Carnegie Mellon, and Wesleyan University. Joining me now, Michael S. Roth. He's the president of Wesleyan University. Michael, good morning. Thanks for taking the time to join us. Earlier this month, your university put a stop to legacy admissions. And you've written, over the years, we've found that an applicant's connection to one of our graduates indicates little about that applicant's ability to succeed at Wesleyan. So what was the thought process behind officially ending any preference for legacy applicants?
Well, as a student whose parents didn't go to college myself, I never really saw the point of the legacy bump, as we've come to call it. But at Wesleyan, it was a very small thing. We have legacy students, maybe 5% of the people we admit, but most of them would get in without any extra assistance. After the Supreme Court decision, it seemed to me that this was egregiously unfair. Earlier, I thought it was unfair, but not. There are many more things that are unfair about education in America. But after the Supreme Court decision, which highlighted the ways in which we are no longer allowed to use the affiliation of applicants with an identity group, a racial identity group, it seemed to me beyond the pale that we would use their affiliation with parents and the university as an extra credit, so to speak, in the admissions process. And I thought by getting rid of legacy admissions, we would send a signal to minoritized communities that actually we care about a diverse campus. The Supreme Court has hampered our ability to recruit students, but we want to send a signal across the country and around the world that we want a diverse campus. And that means we can't give a preference to people, so to speak, in our own family.
You know, interesting new data, Michael, from a research group at Harvard shows that at elite private colleges, children of alumni would still be about 33% more likely to be admitted than applicants with the same test scores based on all other qualifications, demographic characteristics, parents' income, and education. So even if their legacy status wasn't considered, so if that's the case, how can the playing field be leveled before students even apply?
Well, the key is that our K-12 system is so grossly unfair, and that wealthy Americans have access to educational resources that are just not available to people of modest income or people or poor people, working people. And so to put attention on the ways in which we could advance educational equity in the K-12 system would be much more important than like who gets into Wesleyan or who gets into Harvard. Wesleyan is a small school. We only have 3,000 students. We have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of students who would benefit from having access to greater educational resources in the K-12 arena, and then adequately fund community colleges and public universities where students can get a great education if they have the economic support.
Michael, do you have any concerns? You just mentioned Wesleyan being a smaller university. Do you have any concerns about financial impacts that can occur with the ending of legacy admissions?
Everybody says this. Aren't you worried about donations? I'm the university president. I raise money. That's part of my job. And I raise money mostly for financial aid scholarships. So it's very important to me that we don't lose support. I think Wesleyan's alumni are more likely to support the university because we're doing the right thing. The idea that people give a university money because they get something back in the ways of admissions, that's obscene to me. And it's even more obscene that the richest schools in America cling to that notion. People support great institutions of higher education because they're great. They do the right thing. They educate people. They give them opportunities. That's what we should be focused on.
How can factors like geographic diversity, community outreach, and college access programs help achieve diversity in student bodies, especially considering this ruling from the Supreme Court of the United States?
It's a great question. We're working with veterans groups like Warrior Scholars. We're working with QuestBridge that does a wonderful job of finding students around the country, especially in rural America. We're working with community-based organizations to find students who might not think they belong at a place like Wesleyan or at a place like Harvard. And we can show them you belong. You could do the work. You can be successful. We're offering free college classes with the National Educational Equity Foundation, college credit-bearing courses for free in high-poverty high schools so that the students get a credit, but they also get the confidence, hey, I could do the work there. And although Wesleyan is very expensive if you have the money to pay, if you don't have the money to pay, you don't have to pay. And that's a message we're trying to get across the country, much more important than the legacy message, in my view.
I got about 30 seconds with you. Do you think this ending of legacy admissions, that it's going to take fire and that it's going to catch on in other schools?
It's so hard for me to know. I'm a historian. I work on the 19th century, so I'm not very good at predicting the behavior of my colleagues at other universities. I hope so. I don't think the government should intervene. I think we should do the right thing. The right thing is to have a fair admissions process.
Well, it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing at Wesleyan University. So Michael S. Roth, president of the university, I want to thank you for joining me and for taking the time to explain what your university is doing.